My name is Jen Igartua. I'm the CEO of Go Nimbly. We're a revenue operations consultancy, and I promise I am not pitching you today. Next slide. Hell yeah. Today I'm talking about PLG alphabet soup. These are all the acronyms that you know and love. PQL, MQL, SQL, SQO, USB, WTF, OPP. Yeah, you know me. And so why is it that I'm up here? These are some of the logos that I'm super proud of. These are the companies that we've been working with in the last 10 years. And you can see these are the companies that we all look up to. These are the ones with the PLG motion. And when we talk about PLG, just know this is a term that's come up recently, but it's not new. Do I have any engineers in the room? No nerds. Cool. So in 2016, we actually implemented all of the PLG function for Twilio. But we call it developer first. A very finicky market. They don't want to be talked to by sales. So how are we going to up-level the service offering without going after developers who did not want to talk to us? If during the pandemic you went on Coursera.com along with thousands of other people to learn, we built the infrastructure to make sure that we could deal with that influx of users. For Zendesk, do I have any non-native English speakers? All right, I'm the only one, Spanish. So for Zendesk, we translated their free trial campaign into 10 different languages so that you could get the right message. But we didn't call it PLG, we call it free trial conversion. So big idea here is just we've been doing this work. There's a lot that we can learn from these companies. PLG doesn't have to feel scary or that brand new. We've been doing it. So I want to take you back to 2010 and tell you a little story. I had just moved to New York City, had my first career as a marketing automation consultant. The cronut was hot, and so was the demand waterfall. I don't know, anybody remember this? Beautiful. Wow, the design. The one on the left is from 2002, and the one on the right is 2012. And I left GE up there because GE was actually my client. We implemented the demand waterfall for them over 10 times for every single business unit. And at this time, the MQL was hot, first acronym, Marketing Qualified Leads. And the idea was really novel and really amazing. We were not going to call a list of leads. They were not going to be cold. We were going to nurture them. We were going to warm them up, and we were going to call them when it was right for them. So we had really fun meetings. We had like all these amazing minds from GE. We were sitting down talking about how would we know that the customer is ready? What pages were they visiting? What events were they? What demographics did they have? What were their titles? And we came up with the exact time that we were going to reach out to them. Amazing. We spent so much time doing that. We were convinced that we were going to increase the conversion. That's what we were doing. From lead to meeting, we were going to increase that conversion. That is until we got a call from a sales leader. Let's call him Tom, because that was his name. And so Tom gave me a call and was like, Sarah, I need 20 more leads. And I was like, Tom, I'm Jenny. He was like, you still need 20 more leads. And I was like, all right, Tom, what's going on? He's like, well, we just hired a brand new class of SDRs. So I need 20 more leads a week to feed them. And instead of thinking, okay, great, how do we launch more campaigns? How do we get people more engaged? How do we get them to hit that MQL threshold? We just lowered the threshold. So we went from a 90 to an 80. And I wish I could tell you I did that one time. But from 80, we went to 70. We landed somewhere around the 60s. And we used that threshold just to feed the sales team. Okay? And I wish I could tell you that it was just GE because they were a tough client. We did that at multiple clients. The MQL threshold really just became that. It was how do we give the sales team the volume of leads that they need? It was no longer about hitting the customer where they needed and when they needed. I tell you the story because this is what's going to happen in PLG if we're not careful. Okay? And you need to be in the room when you're deciding on when to reach out to a product qualified lead or a product qualified account. You need to make sure that what you're doing with that is thinking about the customer. When are they going to be ready to have that conversation? What kind of things do they need? How do we get them to that customer outcome that's next? And if you're starting to see that you're calling every single sign up, just know that you're making the same mistakes that we did almost 10 years ago. So you're all here because you love PLG. I love PLG, it's amazing. The promise of monetizing an entire segment of users without a sales team. Again, I wish I could tell you that that's exactly what's going to happen and you're not going to need a sales team, but our data shows that most companies, every single logo I showed you earlier has a sales motion. And all of the accounts that you think about when you think about PLG, your Notions and your Slacks and your Figmas, they all have a sales team. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to include human-led moments so that you can expand upon your accounts. PLG has a land and expand motion. How are you going to make sure to maximize that? And the real motion is in balancing that. How do you have a PLG motion and a product-led sales motion without cannibalizing on each other? That's the real thing that you have to figure out. How do you not get that call from Tom? No one likes Tom. So with PQLs and MQLs, if we just double down on that definition, and then I'll do PQAs and PQLs, and hopefully you'll end up knowing all the acronyms. So PQLs and MQLs start with the same thing, ICP. ICP is who you want to do business with. You want to be doing business with the insane clown posse, okay? So you start with the ideal customer profile, and that's your first part of your definition. You're looking for the right demographic data. You're looking for what industry they're in. Maybe you're looking for what tech stack they have. This is all firmographic data that you can find. You might layer that on with some titles or specific roles that you're looking for. And then this is where it changes. MQLs was all about online behavior. We called it digital body language. I don't know if anyone's heard that term in a while, but that was hot at one point. And you were looking for pricing page, events, downloads. Hot leads would be a demo request or a contact us form. Super valuable. Now we're switching that out to say we're looking at product behavior, both the depth and the breadth and the frequency of certain actions within the product. The best companies are mixing both. You don't really have to think about these as two individual. You're really just trying to find when is somebody ready for a human-led interaction. And PQLs, we know, convert at a much higher rate than MQLs. That's why we love them. You could look at a 15 to 30% conversion when you're looking at PQLs. You're lucky to get into that double digits with MQLs. That doesn't mean that they're not helpful. So let's now look at PQAs and PQLs separately. So we've got product qualified accounts and we got product qualified leads. And the same conversation happened when we talked about marketing qualified accounts and marketing qualified leads. There's a lot we can learn from that. We sell to individuals, but we're really looking holistically at an account. So for a PQA, we're going to be summarizing everything from all the users within, an instance or an account. They might be multiple instances as well. So we're going to be looking for user behavior and aggregating that data and trying to elevate that this account is ready for a human-led interaction. And I say human-led because it doesn't necessarily have to be sales, but we're looking for a human-led interaction. We're consolidating those users' data. We're saying this account is ready, and we're going to elevate some users to say, hey, these are your champions. These are folks to listen to and to talk to. That being said, they may not be the entire buying committee. You may also have to tag team with sales and marketing to find the folks that are going to make that decision. They may not be in your product. There are some use cases where PQLs are helpful. PQLs are individuals, single user. We're going to look at their usage and say they're a product qualified lead. The problem here, we are looking for high intent signals and we are looking for specific demographic data, but it's very rare to have a user also be the one with buying power. So your super users are not always the ones that are going to sign the check. So that leads me to say PQAs are better than PQLs. There are some scenarios where you're going to need that, but if you're going to invest in one motion and one infrastructure, you're better off with the PQAs, way radder. So you might be thinking, well, maybe the MQL is dead. Do I just kind of stop with inbound? Do I just kind of stop scoring leads and focus only on my product qualified leads? The truth is that your customers don't know what funnel they're in. Somebody that's interacting with your marketing is going to end up signing up for your free trial. Somebody that's within a free trial is going to go to your events. They're going to download your content. They're going to submit a contact us form. If we continue to think of these as two different funnels that don't interact with each other, we're actually not meeting our customer where they are. So really what we want to think about is it's not one linear funnel. We're going to be engaging, have signals throughout, and you can just consolidate all those and really think about finding a sales-ready lead or a human moment-ready lead. The same customer is also going to be in different motions. We're talking about a sales motion and a product motion, but now you're hearing about customer-led. Event-led and community-led, and you have all these other motions. As you get bigger and bigger, like around the $5 million ARR mark, you're gonna include a sales team. You might have one or two motions. As you get bigger, you're gonna have upwards of 5 or more motions. Again, your customers and your prospects are going to engage with all of these things. If we think about them as one funnel, we're not gonna really match them where they are. Very similar for anyone that's implemented ABM, it's another motion. People that we're going after in ABM are also submitting our contact us forms. We can't think of it as one. Does it make reporting harder? Yes, but it will match your customer. So here's your takeaway. You have multiple funnels. Don't treat them as independent. You're going to start to hear the term the hybrid funnel more often. And that's, Sam, you're right here. You actually talked to me about it yesterday, so I can't even steal that from you. Sam from Mad Kudu's term. So when we look at PQA and PQLs, here's a couple of examples just so that it really comes down. One thing that I wouldn't do with MQLs, we just came up with that number, that threshold. I actually believe you need to have a variety of different PQA and PQL definitions, and they should change, and they shouldn't just be a threshold. I don't need to see that you hit 70 points so you're going through. I prefer that you go look at what is the conversion, what are we trying to do? And you're going to have different playbooks for converting someone to a paid user, for expanding or upgrading their trial, for an adoption play. You might have renewal. You might even have churn mitigation plays. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's do the conversion. Let's talk about a PQL one. This is one where we might just look at an individual. Maybe you've got a highly technical product and a director level sign up happens at a tier 1 account. You know that those individuals are typically not technical enough to get the full value out of your product. They're not going to do the integrations. You might actually just route that directly to an AE to have a conversation. I saw you signed up. Let's talk about why. Let's up-level the conversation right away. That might be pretty early in the funnel, and we're going to engage. If we go maybe a little bit into a PQA expansion, let's say you've got multiple instances. Asana is a great example. Maybe like multiple teams have their own instance. They're all utilizing the product, and we're seeing super high engagement. Let's route that to an AE to up-level the conversation about an enterprise-level plan. Use those champions to have that conversation, to find the buying group, which is probably not those 2 users, and get them to buy. Because PLG is not going to do that for you. We need to up-level it. Early renewals are another one, maybe renewal risks. You might even be looking for a lack of engagement, or somebody was signing in every day and now you're seeing once a week. All those signals might tell you, hey, let's have an early renewal conversation and try to mitigate that risk. And we talked about different MQL signals and PQL signals, and the thing that I'm trying to get here is all these definitions are just a consolidation of signals. So how do you pick from everything that you have access to? We start with ICP and saying Clown Posse Fit. We've got industry, company size. These are all your demographics, your region, what your tech stack is, what department they're in. You can consolidate and use all that. Maybe you're using third-party data for that, or maybe you've collected that at sign up. We have all the product signals that we're talking about. The positive ones are easy. You've used the specific number of features, the depth that they've used those features, the number of integrations you have. All those are really positive signs. Maybe they're just adding users. They might not even be using your product, but they're just adding everyone in the organization. That might tell me something. And then you might look at negative things. Maybe your champions left. Maybe their users were deactivated. That could be a signal to have a conversation. Or maybe there's a lack of activity. They were very engaged. They stopped using a feature, stopped doing something that they used to be doing. Those would be really great for CSMs. Again, we're thinking about a human-led moment. It might not directly go to sales. There's a big product-led CSM kind of route too. We've got engagement signals. So those are all the online signals we have. We can layer with like what pricing pages. Maybe they're in your product and they're starting to look at the enterprise level plan pages. That could be really interesting to mush those 2 together. They might still have high engagement with other types of content. And then third-party intent signals. So, are they looking at competitor pages? Could that be a risk? Are they looking at specific categories? Are they looking for a category of other use cases you cover that maybe they're not aware of? If you can blend all this together with some sort of conversion or expansion or renewal in mind, you're going to have the best playbooks. So, takeaway from all this, you are going to have multiple PQL, PQA, MQA, MQL definitions, and they should change, and they should change often. Every time you have a new feature that comes out, you now have new signals. If you're going after a new segment, you probably have a new play. If you're going after a new persona, you probably need to be looking at different demographic and different usage trends. So make this super flexible and know that it's going to be changing a lot. And you can borrow a lot from growth marketing teams. They really nail this idea of experimentation and changing all the time. We should be doing that as well. Okay. So at this point, we've spent all this time talking about how to identify someone that's ready for a human-led moment. And I say human, and even though it's awkward to say, it'd be easier for me to say sales, because it's not always going to be a salesperson that has the conversation. Depending on the right thing for the customer, let's route them to the right individual. That might be the sales team, that might be the CS team, that might be the CEO, it might be a partner rep, whatever it is, we're going to make sure the right person has that. Then we got to layer on how do we integrate the tools so that they have the information that they need at their fingertips, so they're not having dumb conversations, and that we're enabling them to have those like meaningful peak moments for our customers. So with that, what's getting in the way? It's all your internal silos, like all the bullshit that's going on internally at your company. It's what's keeping you from having this really amazing experience for your customer. And why do we want a great experience? Because that's how we maximize LTV. So it's all about money. I get that. And the way that you do that is by having a great customer experience. So with that, I wanted to tell you a little bit of a story. A couple of years ago, I was working with like a Series C company, and they had just invested in their first sales team. So this is a CEO who was doing all founder-led sales and having really good experience. We implemented the whole PLG funnel. We were elevating the right PQAs. They were having really great conversations and converting. And then we implemented the sales team and gave them a shot. And we saw conversion go way down. We were still booking those meetings, but they weren't converting. Confused about why. We felt like we had it all really tight. So we listened to some calls that were recorded. And the CEO listened to one and asked the rep, why are you not bringing up their product usage? Like, why are you not telling them what features they should be using? Or why are you not up-leveling them? And the rep was like, well, I don't have access to that data. Like, well, why not? Well, I don't know where to find it. I don't have a login. And it's like, okay, well, of course you're not having the same kind of experience. You need to enable your reps to take all those insights, to understand those signals, to have that meaningful conversation. There's nothing worse than looking at someone that's a power user of your product and saying, hey, do you know about feature X? And they're like, yeah, I use it every day. Like, that's going to kill it. That's actually going to decrease your LTV, if nothing more. Okay. So with all that, that's a bad example. That's what it could look like to be bad. What does Nirvana look like? What do we actually want to see? There's a lot of elements up here, but if I do it more of a story, we've got a system that's super flexible that's identifying PQAs. We're changing that. We're experimenting. We've got that experimentation mindset, and we're elevating the right lead when it needs a human-led moment. We've got a really beautiful handoff architecture. We know how to route it to the right person, and we're giving them the exact information that they need. This is a lot about your data model. How are you making sure that signals are really easy to understand, that you don't need to give them everything that every time somebody's logged in, you can just explain what's the recap. We want a super simple automated process. Nirvana, again, could be an automated opportunity created in your CRM with the buying group already attached, with a playbook with the key signals that are going on so that you know how to have the right conversation. We're enabling our sales team on it. We're not just saying, go have a combo, go pick up the phone. That happens a lot. Just go pick up the phone, have a conversation. Doesn't work. And then having a commitment to reporting. How are we making sure that it's converting so that we can learn that and continue to experiment? Oh, also no toms. Ideally, we get rid of our toms. So just to kind of recap on some key takeaways, make the conversation about the customer, not your internal bullshit. PQAs are better than PQLs. You're going to have multiple funnels. Try to remember that hybrid funnel. And your PQL, PQL, MQL, all your acronyms, they're going to change, and they should change. So if you're looking at this and a little bit overwhelmed and where to get started, I don't need you to go implement an entire architecture that does this. Find one playbook, whether that's that expansion or early renewal playbook, or maybe you've got the enterprise, like how do we convert to an enterprise level? Try to find that. Have some theories about what those signals are. You can just export that list. You can do a manual upload in whatever CRM and enable that team to do that play and just prove out your concept. After that, you're going to have a better idea of what those signals are. It's going to make your architecture a lot simpler, and you can test 2 or 3 out and start to see that this is working. All right. And lastly, if nothing more, your ICP. Remember your ICP. If you try to outreach to people that are not ready, who are not in your ICP, it's not going to work. We don't want to reach out to those free users that are just using it for personal use. Cool, friends. All right, that was it. Thank you very much. If you want to add me on LinkedIn, awesome. If you want to see me tweeting at Delta about how bad their coffee is, you can find me on Twitter. Not as interesting. And then happy to take any questions if anyone's got any. I don't know if there were any online. Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Where are you seeing the best place for that product?
Ooh, really good question. So years ago, actually, when we did the Twilio implementation, we pushed it all to Salesforce. We actually had usage. Every single month, we would update the usage, and we would do all triggers from there. Now we're seeing less of that. There's a lot of third-party tools that are coming up. Mad Kudu is one of them. But you've got Mad Kudu, your Pocuses, your Calixas, and there's a lot of that. What I don't love about that is there's a lot of swivel chairing. Not with Mad Kudu, but with other products, where on one side, you've got your team going after PQLs in one product, and then everything else, typically in your CRM. So I like to see that consolidated, not raw data. Go send into Salesforce. That was my learn from having done it once. Just send your big signals. Don't send every login. Send some consolidated signals. Go ahead and put it there. The other thing I would say I'm seeing is when we used to draw up our tech landscape, Salesforce was in the middle. That's not happening anymore. Data warehouses are in the middle now. And Salesforce is a spoke. So you don't have to put everything in Salesforce. You can do reverse ETL tools, all that good stuff, and get only the important data in there, and then have automation that's building on top of that. So a little mix of both. Cool. Beautiful. All right. Hey, yeah. Yeah. You know, do you want the? Sure. Recap is how do you take companies? I mean, OpenView is a good example. There's companies that are just investing in PLG companies. How do you talk to investors that are really wanting a PLG story? Is that the idea here? And how do you give them the confidence that you can do it? Okay. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot of education. I'm not somebody that knows the investor space, so I'm not going to pretend that I do. What I would just say is know that at the $5 million ARR mark, you're bringing in a sales team and you're bringing in those motions. And so early stage, I think it's absolutely fine to double down and invest in that one go-to-market motion and to really get that user flow and to really get your product to prove itself out and then start adding more. But that's about as far as I can take you.